you check the children? Show a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And you got Jaime and Fuego, yeah.
And we are here to do a dual movie review of films that aren't necessarily brand new now, but they're within a month, of coming out. And we're going to be talking about them both together because they are thematically linked. I mean, they're two new slashers, and they're both sort of trying to bring the slasher genre kicking and screaming into 2022 in their own ways. And, I think one was a bit more successful than the other. Neither were particularly, sock off knocking. Wait, knocking. Neither of them knocked my socks off.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
But they both have interesting aspects to discuss. I mean, and they have been discussed a lot with a lot of genre fans, most notably this A24 business that we're going to get to.
Yes. So yes, we are going to be talking about Bodies, the new A24 slasher, relatively new. And then we're also going to be talking about They Slash Them, the Peacock slasher.
Yep.
That came out not too long ago. So we're going to be getting into both of these. Just so you guys know up front, I'm kind of getting over a sickness. So if I laugh and I sound like an 80-year-old smoker, that's why. I've still got a lot of chest congestion, but I'm fighting through it to make sure we get this recorded today here. So
there you go.
Let's start off with Bodies, frankly, just to get it over with. We're not going to necessarily dive as deep in these as we normally do because it'd just be a really long video for two kind of substandard movies in that case. So just starting off, I did not like Bodies. I had a number of reasons, but outside of the very end, when you kind of find out what's been happening, everything else, in my opinion, was a complete waste of time. And unfortunately, as entertaining as that last moment is, it only supports the fact that the rest of the movie was a complete waste of time. So that's ultimately where I landed. I absolutely hated the camera work in it as well. It was so terrible to me. I couldn't stand the camera work in Bodies.
Yeah, the director for that one, she's done a number of things before, but she's Dutch, and it was mostly like television work, and so I think this was like her first like big theatrical sort of excursion. She's an actress herself and whatnot, but so it is such a divisive movie because I've seen a lot of critics that not just in our sphere, but like bigger critics too, like Stuckman and a few others, praise the hell out of this movie and say it's brilliant satire and all this other stuff. And if you didn't enjoy it, you didn't get the joke that, these 20-somethings are being made fun of, as opposed to, trying to be a little more compelling in said regard. But as I think I texted you yesterday, I was like, just because I get the joke doesn't mean I find it funny. And that's really the way that I felt about this movie and these characters, most notably because they are insufferably shitty, and I know that they are deliberately written that way, but I could not stand spending time with them. They just all, in their own distinctive manners, were just such an utter annoyance, with the exception of Lee Pace. Actually, I thought he's the old guy.
Yeah,
he's like in his 40s and he's hanging out with all the kids. And
yeah, the only one I connected with, of course.
Yeah, same. Yeah, but I mean, I still most definitely remember the older people who were trying to reconnect with their youth and hanging out with the younger crowds and whatnot. But yeah, man, and the fact that, I guess I'll commend it on having a little bit of a murder mystery sort of aspect that, from a writing standpoint, at least as far as the setup, I found a little more compelling, in the whole whodunit aspect and whatnot, and kind of shunning away a little from the slasherness. But I just could not stand these kids, man. And this is made by a woman who's like around 40 or something, and so yeah, she's very obviously poking fun at just the very self-indulgent youth culture that's so prevalent today. But I don't know, man.
The problem is it didn't feel satirical to me. It felt like it was playing these characters completely straight. And so the joke is we as the audience are supposed to laugh at them, but there has to be an analogous character for us on screen that gets it too, right? We have to see ourselves in that character, and they have to be like, what is wrong with all of you people? And there wasn't really that character, because they played it as a whodunit for everyone, right? So there wasn't a single person that you were connected with. Everyone could have equally been the killer. I mean, the long and short of the story is this young group of people gather in order to weather a hurricane. They're having a hurricane party. And when they're doing this party, they decide to play this game called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And soon after, people actually start dying. And, well, one person dies, and then everyone starts pointing fingers, and then more people start dying, and you just are trying to figure out who's doing the deed. And that's really all there is, and there's a lot of infighting between the characters all throughout, because there's, you know, tensions from the start. The couple you're starting with from the very beginning of the film kind of show up, not uninvited necessarily, but unconfirmed for the party, and I don't know, there's a lot of tensions between everyone, and they just try and play on that, and it's like, the problem is I don't care about any of these characters. You haven't made me like any of these characters. I haven't spent enough time with any of them to actually care about them, so I don't care about the whodunit. I'm literally just sitting here waiting for the reveal the entire time.
Yeah, I would say the closest character that you kind of connect with occasionally is the poor new girlfriend of the Sophie character. But even then, I mean, it was nice seeing, because that was Borat's daughter from the most recent Borat movie. I forget the name of the actress, but
I didn't even finish that piece of shit movie.
Well, I mean, it was cool seeing her in a little bit different sort of a role and stuff. But even her, like, they do really point the finger at pretty much everybody as being a potential suspect. But I know how much you dislike bunker movies, and this does turn into one of those bunker paranoia pointing fingers at everybody sort of situation. But God, just to double down, I could not stand these kids, man. Ugh.
It feels less like a bunker movie because you have this entire literal mansion to play. Like it's like a football field size mansion, like with the amount of camera tracks there are, and you don't see the same fucking. I swear they shot this in 3 different homes, and we never would have known the difference because they made it act like it was just this one massive house.
Yeah, this huge compound of a property.
But I mean, again, I don't want to drag this on forever. So the acting was okay. I mean, everyone played their parts well enough. I just didn't like any of the characters, and I didn't care about any of them. So there wasn't like bad acting per se. It was just a group of people. I mean, it's the same problem I had with Dashcam. It's like when you're following someone you care so little for, it's just a slog.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that crazy chick was at least so outrageously over the top. She entertained me, even though I couldn't stand her ass. But yeah, man, in this one, it's just a bunch of annoying kids just drinking and drugging and fighting. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
And it's like I lived through that. Like, you know, yeah. I don't need to sit like if there's no story point to it all, like, and there's no development for anyone, what's the point? Like, I don't care. There's no growth in this at all. And again, I guess that's the joke, but it's an hour and a half long joke I don't give a shit about. So
yeah, they were all made to be pretty shitty from the get-go, and then as you find out that they were even shittier over the course of the runtime, is they're like, oh, this is what I really think about you and so on, and I'm just like, ugh, these kids are awful. But anyway, I mean, did you like any of the kills or anything? Because
no,
I mean,
no, and the thing that's revealed about the event that set it all off was so dumb. I'm like, there's not a chance that even this character would be this stupid. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't like any of it. I really didn't. It was a slog. It was a real slog. But the only other thing I think that's worth mentioning is, like I said, the camera work was awful. It was shaky cam for shaky cam's sake. It was not entertaining. It was like if people got sick during it, I wouldn't have been surprised. But it just was not anything really spectacular or anything interesting visually. Even it just really wasn't. It was just a lot of and I don't care for that kind of shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they do try to have at least a little bit of elaborate, just over the top ridiculousness with like one character who gets knocked down these stairs and there's just like friggin' blood everywhere for whatever that nonsensical reason, you know. And there's also a loss of logic from this one jealous friend in general who her character was just grating with, and you know, just how she was confronting said situation and the lack of logic. There was so much about this movie that just bugged me and irritated me throughout. So yeah, that's Bodies times 3, as you were saying, which I thought was a funnier way of putting it. So yeah,
it's rough. It was a rough one. So let's move on to the other movie we're going to talk about today, and that's They/Them. Now this I didn't have a lot of high hopes for after we did our trailer reaction, in all honesty, but when I sat down to watch it, and you had gotten in my ear a little bit on it because you had said it was kind of substandard and whatever before I actually sat down to watch it. So I had that in my head. But as I watched like the first 45 minutes, and I kind of dug it. I liked the setup. I actually appreciated all of the character development. Like there was 45 minutes of development of all these characters in this camp, and why are they here, and what's the thing. And I was into it. I'm like, okay, they're telling a good story to me. Like, as far as a slasher movie goes, they paid way more attention to character development in this than they do in most slashers. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie was very down the line slasher movie, and the way I put it yesterday, for a movie about alternative lifestyles, this movie played very straightforward. Like it was, you know, it didn't really take a lot of risks. It was, you could say, predictable, and there wasn't really any changeover where you're like, oh, now my expectations have been subverted or anything like that. It just played out exactly how you'd feel like it would play out without any sort of veering off of that central path. And because of that, it becomes just kind of an okay movie. I really liked the setup. The first 45 minutes I quite enjoyed, but then the rest, it was just kind of okay.
Yeah, that's when this movie shines, it's where it does focus on, you know, because you have an assortment of different queer characters in this. You know, there's gay, there's bisexual, there's transitioning, and so just the development of all of those characters, that was where I felt like the movie truly shone, because it's really necessary representation. And that despite being a straight man myself, I hate to use a term like I sympathize with the plight, but I know how different that experience has to be, especially seeing how some of my queer friends were treated within like the church community when I was growing up, as they were trying to come out and kind of discover who they really were, with all of the scrutiny and all of the hatred and stuff like that. So then, yeah, the first 45 an hour, from just a character standpoint, I thought it was really good, especially like our lead. She was pretty badass and she entertained me, and there's a cute scene with everybody singing this Pink song, you know, which I thought was really fun.
Who did you consider the lead? I almost would consider the they them character as the lead.
Oh yeah, not okay. So there's, without spoiling too much, there's two characters that are kind of in the midst of transitioning in this. It's the one who was the marksman, who I thought.
Okay, because you said she, and that already confused me. I was like, wait, who's he talking about?
I don't want to chasing Amy it and be like, you know, playing the pronoun game and all that stuff. But yeah, that character in particular, they were clearly our lead, clearly had like the biggest, like there is a scene with a therapist just breaking them down, and dude, it was harsh. Like it really cut to the core. And so yeah, that's where this movie was so much more compelling, when they were focusing on that aspect, because when it finally does try to be a horror movie, it's boringly by the numbers and doesn't bring anything interesting from a kill standpoint. There is one character betrayal that I did not actually see coming, that I found, you know, kind of an interesting little twist. But you know, what did you think about Kevin Bacon in this?
So that I wanted to get to that. I mean, real quick before we get to the acting, I mean, it's the long and short of this story is a group of kids of various LGBTQ plus persuasions arrive at this conversion camp, and they are greeted by Kevin Bacon and his staff, who basically explains in a very, what I felt like, a compassionate way, what their goals for this camp is. And it's not to change you, it's to help you figure out who you really are. It was a really interesting approach, and I was like, wow, like the way that Kevin Bacon is selling this, I'm like, wow, this might not be such a bad place. Obviously that does not end up being the case, but then things start to go crazy and people start dying. I won't even say necessarily what people start dying, because that is an indication of how the slasher goes, but that's the long and short of the story. And to your question, Kevin did an awesome job. Like he came off super compassionate, and then as he started to, you know, show the other sides of himself, I mean, he sells it like a master. He really did a great job in this, I thought. I mean,
and even though the other counselors, I think, are a little more one note, they still, it was interesting how, because they're all former converted themselves back to being straight or normal or whatever, the silly term you want to use, and what was still dwelling beneath the surface, even with some of the stuff Bacon says, and then some of those other counselors. There's one scene where they're in bed together, and I was just like, wow, that's how we're going about it. Interesting. But our lead, when they were talking about how I'm suspicious because they seem so nice, that's what's tripping me out. I thought that was very insightful observation on their part. So
yeah, I liked the dialogue most of the way through as well. I mean, there was some cheesy bits, sure, but
it was
ultimately
sharp a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it was cool to see Anna Klumsky again, my girl. You realize that's who that was? So that she was one of the counselors, one of the newer counselors for the camp, and so
discovers some of what's really going on.
Yeah. And at first I was like, wait, is that my girl? And then I just kept watching. I was like, that is my girl. I had to check. But yeah, so she did a good job. Kevin Bacon did a good job. Everyone really played their parts pretty well, quite honestly. Even the mysterious Gabriel, who was tripping me out half of the movie, because I did not expect what Gabriel revealed themselves to be. Once they finally did, I was like, Jesus Christ.
And if we're going to compare both of these two movies back to back, what I will say is that I found the cast of They Them to be immensely more endearing in just about every possible capacity compared to the kids in Bodies.
I was even on board for the music moment where all of them started like singing and making themselves feel better. I was like, that was a really nice moment. It was a really nice moment in the movie, honestly.
Yeah, and especially how like the jock is all averse to it at first, and then he just like slides
gives
down.
in.
Yeah, I thought that was a great scene, honestly.
Yeah. So there was actually quite a bit to enjoy in They/Them until it just becomes your basic slasher stuff towards the end. So ultimately, They/Them to me was way more of an enjoyable viewing experience than Bodies, and is one that, I don't know that I would revisit a great amount, but I'd be okay to revisit it again down the line, whereas Bodies, I would just feel like that'd be a waste of my time.
Yeah, hell to the no. I'm right there with you, man.
So yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much going to cover. I didn't have any camera issues or anything with They/Them. That was all very straightforward as well. So I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say about it. Do you have anything else you want to say about either film?
No, not so much. I think we've kind of said our piece, and They Them is exclusively on Peacock, and Bodies you would have to go and endure the A24 theatrical experience if y'all had the curiosity. So.
Short one though it may be. Not a worthwhile one in our estimation. So
it's an arduous slog, but anyway.
So thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias, I've been Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.